country. I see your LSU shirt on. That's my other half.
All
Okay.
right, we're live. It is May 29th, almost June. We're heading into, the shortest spring into the summer. And I'm wearing my 125th Oakmont US Open hat. I'm pretty proud, and that's Austin behind me. And we got a great show, and a great guest. But before we get rolling with the digital roundtable, let's have our own John Sibley Butler play some music.
On the road again. Can't wait to get back on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends. And I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. Going places that I've never been. Seeing things that I may never see again. And I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. Like a band of gypsies, we go down the highway. We're the best of friends, insisting that the world keep turning our way, our way. We're on the road again. Can't wait to get back on the road again. Life I love is making music with my friends. And I can't wait to get on the road again. And I can't wait to get on the road again.
All right.
Nice.
Thank you, Johnny.
How you doing?
Llewellyn is trying so high tech. He's in a spit bullet train, 200 miles an hour from Rhode Island to DC, and he has his red beat headphones, and he will come and go as many times as the train allows him to do it. But John Butler, digital transformations, the stock market, NVIDIA is going through the roof. There's all kinds of things going on. We just got Michael Pessin to agree to a keynote at Digital 360 Summit. You are doing a Digital 360 Summit keynote. The disruptive 50s coming. What's happening, Butler?
Well, what's happening is we have always known that America was set up to be a country of merchants and not a country of politicians. We've always known that throughout the history of the great country of America, it has been merchants who provided the jobs, whether they're big-time merchants or whether they were small-time merchants with small enterprises, whether they had a Dell computer or whether they had a small shop on the corner. And what has happened now is that with all of the noise around the political arena, the merchants have come together and said the following: despite what's going on in the political arena, we will provide jobs, we will provide opportunities, and more importantly, the legal immigrants who are coming to America have really gotten in on the new venture startups. I can tell you this, I have been so busy with telephone calls around new venture kinds of stuff. And yes, I am on the committee for the CNBC Disruptive Technologies. And what the world will see will be very interesting. As a matter of fact, I spent my time, whenever I see something great, I send it to Llewellyn King. I sent him some videos with robots doing everything. I mean, everything, looking like humans, picking up stuff, doing everything. And so what's going on is the stock market is responding to this. And remember that we will have the biggest transfer also for the boomers, which is my generation, to the next generation. It would be trillions and trillions of dollars. So make no mistake about it. With all of the stuff, the horrible stuff that's going on in the world, and I think that what has happened in Israel and Hamas is reaching revolutionary portion. I think that when Israel first got hit from behind, somebody shot them on our back. I said, go get them and make them pay. Now I'm saying, please, please stop and let's have some humanitarian stuff in Palestine. Then when you look at the overall country, you got two things really going on. Let me say three. First of all, the weather has been biblical, I might add. But the second thing is how Americans are responding to all of this and so much that is going on. I mean, the deaths and the killings in Europe, in Palestine, and in Israel, it is just off the scale. It is World War II kinds of off the scales. And remember, I'm a veteran, and I have a Bronze Star for valor in combat. So I don't mind a good war, but I do mind somebody shooting you in the back. But, and here's the other thing, Andreas, that we talked about. I'm not sure where the electrification of America is going now. I just cannot get it through my head.
I mean, on the headset.
I cannot get it through my head
Sorry.
that Mercedes is now trying to give away electric cars. I had a good friend who bought an electric car for his wife. She had to charge it, and she told him, please come get this damn thing, and I don't want to see it again. So there's a lag, as you know, between where we are with the electrification of America and how we can plug up. And we know everybody plugged up now, then it'd be dangerous, but that lag has got to really keep up. And as you know, from our discussion with so many companies, there's so much going on. Now we've got to go through, we have a former sitting president going through a court case, which I think should have been taken care of in the back room somewhere. But I think his personality is such that he doesn't want to do that. I'm not interested in his affairs. I'm not interested in that at all. I think that that should have been taken care of. And I think it's an interesting time in America. But again, the technologies that's coming forward, how we move forward, and what you are doing and will do at Digital when we have our meeting, everybody should come to the meeting because it will be awesome.
Yep.
And
I agree.
I don't want you to say anything about me going into the Austin Technology Hall of Fame with Michael Dale and Bobby Inman, because you know how shy and withdrawn I am.
Absolutely, Johnny. Llewellyn, are you ready? Llewellyn. Oh, Llewellyn. Llewellyn is not ready. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm trying. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
This
can
is
hear
Llewellyn
you.
coming in. Okay. Well, we've got a disturbed world. It's a very anxious time. People are concerned with two wars. Oddly, we have a sort of bubble of prosperity here. Whether it will last or not is unclear, because there are many uncertainties, not the least of which is the weather. The aberrant weather has started very early this year. It does not augur well for the summer and the coming winter. We're expecting electricity shortages, which will damage the economy. If we have aberrant weather, that will damage the economy. And some of this euphoria might pass quite swiftly.
Yeah, I agree. It's good thoughts. So as you all know, we keep track of digital transformations, and we are very excited about what's happening in the country with EVs and the flying economy and vertical takeoff and landing and drones, and really the core of all this transformation is really intelligent materials, smart buildings, smart cities. All that transformation seems to be accelerating dramatically. You got Belmont and Tolosa and Emerald City and Elon Musk City and many things going on. So we have a great guest today. We have Tommy McClung. Tommy is the VP and marketing partner at Atlas Design Services, which is a company that is in the middle of all this. They are a certified Texas hub in the city of Austin, Hispanic-owned civil engineering firm. They build all kinds of things, design all kinds of things. And we have Tommy for the hour here. So Tommy, welcome to the program. Tell us a little bit about you, your background, and a little bit about Atlas, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Tommy McClung. I think, John, you called yourself a boomer earlier. I'm with you. I'm there. I'm at that point in life, and UT graduate. I had retired Navy as well. Spent my time in the service, and proud of our country, and know that we're going through difficult times, but willing to get through it. You know, I professionally, I've a very eclectic career, but what's led me to this moment was I was the City of Houston director that was in charge of smart meters at that time, as well as some other technical advances. And so we put that into play, which led to my consulting career. And with consulting, I've done a number of AMI designs, advanced metering infrastructure designs, program designs, and it's led to some other discussions. You know, I've spoken at conferences, water loss, et cetera, to give, I guess, myself perspective on how these technologies could work. You know, the connectivity, the architecture, and the data platforms. And really, Andres, you and I go back to when we met, you know, at a TML conference once in the past, or something along those lines, where we were talking and speaking regarding these types of advances and how the pragmatic use cases could lead to leveraging the investments that are associated with this technology. So it's that's my background. I've worked for management technology consulting firm, West Monroe Partners out of Chicago. I've worked for Jacobs Engineering, and I see some of my former colleagues here on the call right now from Jacobs, and currently with Atlas supporting a couple of AMI implementation projects. And so glad and proud that y'all brought me here, and look forward to the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Tommy, I spent some time in Chicago. I got my PhD from Northwestern.
Yeah.
It was
Very
cold,
familiar.
Tommy, but I
Yeah, it
enjoyed
was
it. I
cold.
met my wife up there, which makes it. Let me ask you this.
Sure.
As you go around the country, and as we look at perhaps some of the greatest technology changes that has happened since flight in the electrification of Chicago during the Chicago World Fair, I want to ask you two things. How do you see people perceiving it? How do you see workers perceiving it? If you were to give a talk on the future of the workforce and technology, what would it look like, Tommy? I mean, what could you say? Because it is changing faster, as Lou Ellen likes to point out. Everything is changing. Workers will be disrupted. We've got to find new kinds of workers, new kinds of enterprises, new business models.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say that America is doing to prepare, and does it vary by region?
Well, John, that's a very, very deep and profound question. As you know, start introducing concepts between public and private education and school choice, which we're dealing with here in Texas. But I think that ultimately the leaders that we have in place have to understand and recognize that from a workforce perspective, the change is going to happen where there's more analytical, digital, or data-driven thought processes that need to occur. So critical thinking skills, analytics, those types of skill sets are required now. I used to make light of the fact that, you know, computers are not going away. They're a tool that you have to get used to. And I used to use the analogy with a torque wrench. You know, back in the day, all of us had a torque wrench in our hand and we knew how to use it. But if you didn't know how to use it, you might over torque, under torque, whatever the situation might be. Well, computers are very much a tool that's there for our citizens, and the younger generations use it. And so the challenge, I think, as you know, John, and as y'all study it, those y'all that are deep into the workforce changes, that there is a gentrification or an old aging of the workforce population, and economic factors are driving people to stay in the workforce longer. And so we have to, it's like teaching a classroom where you've got a 12th grade student and potentially a first grade student in the class, and you have to be able to touch all of them. So what, in the workforce element to it, we just simply have to accept that as part of what you consider when you're designing programs to implement technology and use technology to move forward.
You know, I've always said too, that from an academic point of view, we're going back to core disciplines. Okay. I've always been a love of math and social science, you know, economics, sociology, history. And this is what I think. I think that when we were coming along, industry got the best and brightest and trained them themselves. I mean, even now, you can major in anything at Princeton and end up on Wall Street. Do you think that as we go back to the core disciplines, I mean, reading, writing, arithmetic, which allows you to major in engineering, you know, English. So I see the content being English. And of course, being a statistician, I think that all of the so-called new stuff is just simple. If you major in economics, sociology, or psychology, you were a statistician. So all of the new stuff to me, and even the modeling, I mean, sociologists and economists and psychology have been modeling the world for years and years and years. It's nothing new. So do you think we've come to a time where industry themselves would have to go get the best and the brightest, whether it's college or whether they learn it at home, and retrain them?
John, this is certainly not what I expected in terms of the line of question, but I can certainly address from my experience. Being a former military person yourself, you know that what happens when the military, they don't care what your degree is in, they don't care what your education is. They're going to train you and teach you how to effectively operate in the environment that you're given. And honestly, that's where I learned my leadership and my capacity for flexibility and change that's required. And it goes back to so many different pop-ups that are coming into my head. You know, if you look at my background was math. I actually
mine too.
I taught math in school. I've always believed in analytics. I've always loved computers, and I've always had that insight. But my degree is in education, and I am now part owner of an engineering firm. And in the military, my work discipline was an engineering discipline. And so it was really about how do you take the parameters that you're given, critically think about what the mission is in front of you, and how do you achieve that? I mean, ultimately, that's how I ended up in consulting, because I inherited a system and one of my previous employers that had failed, and it was a $100 million investment that had failed, and they needed me to turn it around. And I went in and I just broke it down into the simplest forms and put it back together. And,
absolutely.
So let me jump in. Let me jump in and help John, because you know the thing with John, Tommy, is that John is a Southerner, and he's meandering around. The key question he's trying to ask you is AI coming into your culture, into your company? Are you guys using AI, and how is that influencing, improving, or changing what's going on in what you do?
You know, Andres, I don't see AI in execution very much right now. I see it in talk and concept, and but I would suggest, and I saw one of the most brilliant financial models I've ever seen created in a spreadsheet by a former friend of mine who is the budget director at the city of Houston, and it had taken into account financial variables from across his historical experience and came into this continued learning environment, which was the spreadsheet. And I remember learning about this in like 2010, 2011, and I thought to myself, that's machine learning right there in its bare essence. Now, how you turn it, how you automate that and turn it into a computational process. You know, I've seen some of the more advanced applications of that, say like Jacobs, like at Jacobs Engineering, they would run these models through in the computational scenarios where they could run thousands and thousands of scenarios and
Sure.
put out what is the best projects that you might need to accomplish first, your project priorities, capital programs. And ultimately, that's where AI is going to support the infrastructure, our cities and everything else, is how you take that computational power that AI is the underbelly of AI and put it into scenarios that are driven by operational use cases. And I love, what y'all are doing at Cedar with it referring back to asset management, because it absolutely is about asset management. In fact, a speech I gave at a water loss conference a couple years back, I actually just kind of floated out there, advanced metering infrastructure, AMI, that we all love and dearly love, right? Well, that AM actually stands for asset management infrastructure, because the connectivity of these data sources really tie back to how do we use that information, digest that information, and put it into more effective decision making for the life cycle of our assets.
Yeah.
And Tommy, let me just add this. What's different is we can now put the behavior components. So when I was at Northwestern, they were creating finance at the University of Chicago. But finance took it from physics, and we can write those equations. But the problem with financial equations now is that they have no human component in it. What's different is, we know what humans are doing, and I can predict the movement of humans now with the right data set, with big data, better than you predict the movement of the stars. So I think what would happen is that that would be added to the financial models, and it will be much more predictive. So we always have financial problems because the financial model doesn't have the human component to it. Once you throw in the human component, it becomes really, really interesting.
Yeah, Llewellyn, you have any questions? You're muted. You're muted, Llewellyn.
Come on, I got a northern on a damn train. You always
Move your phone. Move your phone.
always on public transportation.
You're muted. You're muted. We can't hear you. You're muted.
You're muted, Llewellyn. Muted. You're muted. You're muted.
He's muted.
He's
Linda,
muted.
that's Linda.
Linda, I
Yeah,
can't hear.
John, while we're waiting to get to Llewellyn on the phone, John, I'm going to touch
Hello,
on your-
can you hear me now?
Yeah, we
Yes,
got
yes. Turn the
Okay.
phone sideways. Turn the phone sideways so we can see more of you.
Okay,
There
There
you
you
go.
go.
Good
Not
show.
that I want to,
There
but
we
it looks
are. I'm
good.
sorry about all this problem.
No, go
I
ahead.
checked-
Go
You
ahead.
northern people are always
and-
on public transportation. Damn,
Anyway, John, every time we see a new technology, it's greeted with huge enthusiasm. It's going to be a globe change, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. But if I think of things like, for example, how we were going to have a change in transportation with Segway, it didn't happen. We're going to have this happen, or a different mission occurs. Do you think we're overestimating or underestimating the impact of AI? Did we overestimate or underestimate the initial impact of computers? I think we way underestimated it, and we probably overestimated the impact of 5G and other telephone innovations.
What do you think,
How do you
Tommy?
do?
That's an interesting perspective, Llewellyn. I think that I still look at it from the human side as well. The adoption of this level of technology and the data, the amount of data now made available by technology is not, we have way underestimated what we might think it should be. And by that, I mean, the adoption of it, the understanding of it is not nearly as great as we would hope to as educators or academic professionals or theorists or test environments. The human ability to absorb this level of change and the amount of data, I think, is severely underestimated. In other words, we have overestimated our capability to do it because it has been undervalued by most people. And there's a fear, as you were alluding to earlier, John, of, well, this is taking my job. Well, the truth of the matter is the dynamics of jobs are changing. The dynamics of the workforce are changing and require different skill sets, different thought processes. And that's where I think using lab environments and the financial, bringing back the human element to financial models or any other model that you put into play, because at the end of the day, humans are going to have to either consume it or implement it or interpret it at some point, at least for now, until, John, you reach that point where robots are doing everything.
That's very interesting and fascinating because whereas market research, for example, which is a data-driven undertaking, market research gets it wrong when it comes to movies, books, things like that. It's just terribly wrong. I have read recently 6 books about Hollywood. When I plunge in, I plunge in. Not about stars, but about how movies are made, how they're marketed, the working side of Hollywood. And the one thing they all know is they have no idea whether they have a hit or a miss. This is so what they do is that's why they pay to stars so much. Certain stars will paper over the deficiency of acceptability of some movies. But there is no way yet.
Oh, he was just coming to his point.
I know. He's
Oh,
frozen.
no.
It went in the tunnel.
And
It went in the
it
tunnel.
looked
They
like
got
it went
lost
into
in
So
the tunnel.
Tommy, assume that I give you a technology, Tommy, that turns the street lights into collective assets in IoT with cameras and sensors. And I also tell you that those lights have
Data is if we don't
energy storage. Oh, there he is. Is he back? I don't know. So for every 600 streetlights with energy storage and LED solar panels, Tommy, you get 1 megawatt of battery that can be played with the grid. So in the case of the city of Houston, which has roughly 450,000 streetlights, that would be 750 megawatts. So what if I told you that a city could manage with streetlights and energy storage 750 megawatts of power to balance the grid and do all kinds of things? Would that be a game changer? What would the city of Houston think of that? And have you guys at Atlas been looking at smart streetlights with energy storage as a game changer?
Well, specifically, we've not worked with it directly, but it is one of the use cases in the back of my mind that I know that's available out there for smart cities implementation. I think that I would back it up, Andres, to answer your question, is what's the strategy of whatever jurisdiction you're dealing with and what is their priorities? An example, if those streetlights in some segment of that in a small cell consideration were potentially feeding a water treatment plant, as an example, where you might not, in a power outage, have the capability, or you eliminate the need for large generator capability, et cetera, because now you're using this backup power that is associated with LED lighting and power storage. So it's really about each jurisdictional customized requirement. And that's part of the approach. And what we're doing with Atlas specifically is I see a gap in it that relates it's similar to what people noted a few years back when the business relationship manager role was developed, where there was a gap between the end users and technologists, and they couldn't speak the language. Well, when you look at engineers and their design capabilities and the impact long-term of operations within whatever jurisdiction, whether it be a city, a region, or whatever, there is a need for people to be able to prioritize what they have, to be able to understand what they have, to be able to connect the data sources, and then to be able to apply that data. And so that's what we're doing, is building the capability of really what boils down to implementation. We're able to, if you say to me, Andres, and I'll flip the script back to you, if you say, hey, we've got all this capability in place, but we don't know how to operate it, we're going to be able to come in and help you learn how to operate it and optimize it over the life cycle of these assets. As a company, that's what we're striving to be able to do.
Got it.
Well, Tommy,
Johnny?
let me ask you. Oh, I'm sorry, Andres.
No, go ahead, Johnny.
I'm gonna ask you this. It could be a little sensitive. I had a presidential appointment myself on the W, and the last president asked me to consider Secretary of the Army, and I served President Bush. W. Now let me ask you this, and you don't have to answer it. I've been there before. You know, I've been in it. I've done this before Congress before. Do you think that the technologies that DoD have will absolutely blow everybody's mind? My conception, or I think that DoD or America, right, has technologies that we have never seen, have bases that we don't know of, and just as Tang came out of the space program, and just as you think that you are seeing something flying around, it might be ours. It's just your opinion. Do you think, just your opinion, and mine is, I think that what DoD has is just absolutely frightening. That's my opinion. I mean, frightening on the business side. So when it's converted to the civilian side, just what's your opinion on that? Being an ex-military guy like me, just what's your opinion? I mean, do you think there are? I mean, because remember, DoD had the way up long before us. DoD had.
Right.
What do you think?
I'm not informed enough to make an intelligent observation, but I would
None of
say
us are.
that
We'll be dead.
I would say that in my time there, and I spent a good amount of time around technology. I mean, we back going in 2008, 2009, we were still using COBOL based systems, operating systems to operate weapon systems, just because it was faster. You know, it operated faster than most others. And if you know anything about COBOL and programming, how you program it is really important. And that's one thing I think about the military. And it's not directly answering your question, John, but I think what I saw in the military, and what I think probably is still happening, is that the environment is so dynamic with what they're dealing with, and they're having to try to stay a step ahead, that they're always exploring the margins. And whenever they push that margin out, they're creating things that we're not aware of. So I absolutely agree with that. I don't know what it looks like. I think that, you know, kind of bringing it back to jurisdictional capabilities, smart campuses, whether it be LSU, Texas State, whatever it might be. And Andres, I got to apologize if Southwest Texas comes out of my mouth, it's because I'm old.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
And
Can I add in here? Can you hear me? I think I'm back. I hope so.
We can hear you, Llewellyn. Move your hand from the camera. Move your hand from the camera, sir. Thank you. Go.
Oh.
He's back? No, he's not back. He's frozen again. Man, I tell you, that speed.
Okay.
Oh, there he goes. There he goes.
A lot of the cutting edge stuff is done in the national labs. Some of it behind the fence, and some of it in front of the fence. The problem with the labs has been they've discovered so much and found technology transfer industry, and partly
Yeah, John Butler, you would know about technology transfer. You created a master's program on that.
I think what he's saying is,
well, I do too. I spent years working. Spent years working on it and did a lot of conferences. And you've got an interesting dynamic. If the technology that companies have is profitable and they're not in fierce competition, they do not want new technology. If they're in competition, they do want technology. We're going through a period because of the success of computers and the internet, of thinking that all corporations and all product producers are desperate to get new technology. That is not necessarily true. They're very slow to adopt it.
You're breaking up, Llewellyn. You're breaking up.
I think what Llewellyn was saying is that the national labs have stuff we just don't know about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
That has always been I think that
So,
that has been the
so
case.
Tommy, tell us, give us a pulse. Your guys are talking out there to a bunch of companies, utilities. What's going on? Is the smart grid accelerating? Is the use of metering data accelerating?
BWI, Airport.
Go ahead, Tommy.
Okay, I think that it's the adoption of smart meter technology is pretty extensive. A lot of large cities have done it. Some of the mid-sized, smaller cities are doing it. I think where we see the future of it being, Andres, and I'll jump kind of ahead to express that the regionalization of infrastructure and how you manage that can be accelerated with the use of connectivity, data source connectivity, and data engines or analytics. We like to refer to it as analytics factory, because at the end of the day, you're producing data for end users to make decisions. And that's where that human element comes into play. But we see it, I mean, you see it in Hayes County right now and in San Marcos with the Alliance Regional Water Authority. And, I see some folks on here that have worked with me in the past on that. They're putting in this new 30 million gallon per day water treatment plant and running this infrastructure over 85 miles. And there's going to need to be, there will need to be technology supporting that in order to manage it effectively over its life cycle. And I know that there are conversations that they're having to figure out what does that look like in the future. And then you're looking just go north of Austin to Williamson County, and you're seeing similar type stressors when it comes to water. And Georgetown reaching out to EPCOR in Rockdale and bringing that water from the old Alcoa plant. So there's a lot of regionalization stressors that I think will drive adoption and accelerate smart grid, smart technologies in use cases that haven't been considered to this point. Go well beyond just the electrification. It's going to be water, wastewater, streets, regional traffic centers, ITS centers, all these different things have to be considered. And I think it starts with, again, vision, regional visions, and being able to sit down and do what y'all are doing. I mean, honestly, in studying what you do at Cedar and looking at it, that is very much what happens. I do think that there's some financial elements to it, the human factor that John mentioned earlier, that all play a part in adoption and actual success and execution of it through the life cycle of these assets that are involved.
Well, Tommy, we've had our biggest problems, I think, in people, city councils, and et cetera, understanding business models. That is what we like to say. And we started this in Texas years ago and switched to Austin from a place that had no opportunities to a great place, but with great opportunities. How do you see the ability of people, when you say vision, to understand the business models, to understand when Andres said, when he begins to talk about streetlights and how that can kick off revenue, when we begin to talk about just, instead of just paving highways, let's just put some heaters in it so we have an ice storm, then the ice goes away. How can we talk to other people in real estate about when the building is smart and the savings that they have? And how do I talk about, I was a major consultant for State Farm for 22 years. And Bill King, one of the vice presidents, had a saying. He would ask me, well, Dr. Butler, what's going to happen when cars stop bumping into each other? There'll be no more car wrecks. So how do you get the business models and people to understand the business models as old technologies go away and new technology evolve, just concentrating on the business models and the revenue that data itself can bring?
John, that's I believe what you just said is the $100 million question, because it is, there's no easy button. At the end of the day, it's a combination of, government agencies, as well as NGOs, as well as consulting agencies like us, as well as cities, to find champions in the endeavors that they undertake. That's our approach right now, is we want to find champions that buy into this idea with the perspective of build it and they will come. If we go in with a champion and can create this model and folks see how it is executed, they'll be less intimidated by it or not consider it some kind of myth. but it's I think that's the challenge, and it can start with, you know, the collaborations or the cooperations of universities. Again, not to just keep blowing sunshine Andres's way, but what his organization is doing and what they're doing at the University of Texas, and just really everyone coming together to say and develop ways to be innovative. Now, the challenge we all face, as you know, is our political cycle is so short in so many in the regard to the life cycle of these assets we're talking about, that people want to make decisions for immediate pleasure or immediate gratification, self-serving gratification, and it doesn't always necessarily it's not necessarily the best decision for assets that last 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And that's where the challenge, I think, lies in getting that communication, is how do we build upon it. And one example I saw that I thought worked really well was in capital planning. You typically see in cities 5 years. They'll look at 5-year window. Businesses, when they're doing profit analysis, and John, you'll know more about this. What is it, 3 to 5 years? You know, they're looking at it, they're rolling this thing over constantly, right? Well, there was this 5+5 perspective that was developed in the city of Houston. It was when I was working with them, and they developed this 5+5 model. So they weren't just looking at 5 years; they were constantly looking at 10 years. Well, is there a way to structurally do that over 20, 30 years, where it is built into, it's codified, it is made as part of what you do?
Now, one time I think what happened here in Texas is a little different, I think, because merchants run the state,
Mm-hmm.
and the governor understands that, and we have no process of unionization. But you know, I worked in New York, and the union stuff is very, very interesting. It's very, very good on the one hand, but sometimes it gets in the way of innovation. And I think that, for example, my home state of Louisiana, the politicians are very, very important. In Texas, I would say not so much when it comes to the economy. That is, if we look at all of the great companies that we've done, from Southwest Airlines to Dell to Whole Foods to National Instruments and just tons and tons more, the merchants have a say. We bring the merchants in.
I would agree with that. Mm-hmm.
You agree with that? And I think that if we get a national policy like that, as Lou Allen said, let's make America, Texas great. Then what we could do is understand how things are created. Now, Boston did it with MIT, UT did it, Stanford has done it.
Mm-hmm.
So the tragedy, Tommy, is that 98% of all the great companies were just founded in the last 40 years in Silicon Valley, Austin, and Boston. You know, and what we got to do, we've got to spread that out, I think. And that method that you talked about, the merchants, we have to make the entrepreneurs the heroes as we move forward into the millennium, if you will.
And well, another interesting observation by you, John, because it's really what government's supposed to do, right? Is to set the parameters around success so that innovation, entrepreneurship, and all that is fostered and people accomplish things. You know, and we've talked about it in this call and prior to going live, but you know, Elon Musk and others that have done these really creative things for society. I think it is, you know, it's build it, they will come.
Yeah, we need agency. So the government, go ahead. The new interstate, of course, is 5G. It's got to be just as sure as the interstate changed the business patterns. 5G would change the business patterns. People will return to small towns. The small towns in Texas will boom. The small towns in Illinois will boom, because now you can interact and do great things. And I guess my ultimate question to you is, when 5G comes along and all the technology comes along, all the stuff that Andreas is doing, will America, will the interstate change? What's going to change? Will small towns be reinvented? Will the country be reinvented? Will the county store be reinvented? What changes? Because I see, well, I'm going to let you answer that question, because you out the companies.
Oh gosh, boy, John, this is more than our conversation. These are things that would go into, you know, I just said in a master plan update for a local city here that would be considered a mid-sized city. And we actually were prime on a smaller cities code development a few years back. Every small city I know, specifically in Texas, but for that matter, I could take that to Oklahoma and Louisiana, which I'm comfortable speaking to. They want to keep the small town charm. So to your point, I think what needs to occur, to create change or to at least enable the opportunity for change is where we look at corridors. As an example, right now, when you're dealing with broadband in cities and you're looking at equity considerations and connectivity considerations for lower socioeconomic, there are so many different best practices that are involved with construction or public works. As an example, when you go cut a street, if you got water lines present that are going to be changed out in the next 5 years, you're considering, do we change it out now so that we can then exhaust it? Well, then we now have to start considering broadband, fiber, all the other elements that come into the connectivity world when we go into this infrastructure that exists. And so it cannot just be water, wastewater. It has to be a more broad consideration of how we create this connectivity. And so change then is enabled. Because after the fact, it becomes cost prohibitive, time prohibitive, it becomes disruptive to the community. And so how is it going to change is as we start taking that broader perspective, and again, a regional perspective, a national perspective on how, whenever infrastructure is being approached in an area, are we considering all the elements to connectivity for data in order to connect human beings, manage assets better for their life cycle, et cetera, and so on and so forth. And so that's the way it's going to change. But the charm we want in America, we still want, Blanco, Texas, or Georgetown, Texas, or whatever, to have that ability to look like what they represent, and their history avails itself. But we also want,
I'm from a town, North Shore. They don't even call my towns anymore. They just call me the North Shore of New Orleans. And it really, Silicon Valley is what, 4 or 5 cities?
Yeah.
Austin will be, with the same thing in Austin. And we might, and I like to say, we might go far as Columbus in years. Just don't know. But I do think that that the business models are very, very important to the technology.
Agreed.
And I think that as Andreas, as we work with cities, we like to talk about the business cases or the business models.
And I was going to ask, John, and I don't mean to interrupt you, sir, but Andres, when I was looking at y'all's model about your living labs and what y'all are exploring, one of the ones that jumped out at me that I didn't see, at least within the context, was financial. The smart lab for financial, and how these business cases are built and what it looks like. Because you talk about a life cycle business model or financial model to decision makers right now, their eyes go cross-eyed.
Exactly. I mean, not only that, if you go to the average C-suite and ask them about the technology, they don't know anything about it. So that's
why. So real quick answer. So there is a lab in the planning phase. It's called the commercialization lab. And that commercialization lab would tackle all the soft elements that have to do with the success of the technology. So the 14 living labs are all about connected infrastructure of some kind, utilities, buildings, mobility, energy, water, network sensors, smart cities and the like. And then the 15 lab, the commercialization lab. And so in that lab, we have built a relationship with 16 venture capital and private equity companies. And so that lab will probably launch in mid 2025, something like that. We're still cutting our teeth with 6 of the 14 labs, and we're trying to make progress as we can. And then you may recall, Tommy, that I run a company called CMG that John is a partner in, and we do broadband deployments, and we do solar PV farm deployments, and we're getting into the multi-family smart living business, and we do also EV charging and vertical takeoff and landing drone charging stuff, and And I think that, you know, in the streetlights, which, you know, the funny thing about that is, if you do the math on the 26 million streetlights in America, and I was God for a day, and I could turn them on into my solution that I'm selling, which we could collaborate and partner with, that would be 43 gigawatts of power that would help the grid and run many things that it's not happening today. So, you know, there's this shift to the edge of the grid, into the infrastructure being, you know, every house in a power plant, every building being a power plant, a microgrid, so on, and all these EVs and vertical takeoff and landing and drone things. And there's all these thoughts about turning the roads into, you know, wireless charging hubs and all kinds of capabilities. People are dreaming up all kinds of to enable the Jetsons, right? And the challenge is, how is it going to happen? You know, who is going to write the check? So my last question to you, looking at the time, and then I'll help you close up with what's going on in your world in the next 6 months, is, do you see a shift on how cities can pay? Are cities beyond big private partnerships being more, you know, aggressive about doing different things or unique things about how they can afford this new innovation transformation? Because I think that there is a catch, there's an issue here about the fact that, you know, Elon Musk wants to build his own city for housing purposes and educational purposes, because he doesn't see Del Valley School District or Bastrop County or anybody for that matter around him answering the problems that he has. And the problem that he has, and I'm picking on him because he's an easy one, everybody knows him. He just agreed to build a second gigafactory a mile away from the current gigafactory. And the current gigafactory is housing 16,000 people, workers. And the new gigafactory will do the same. And where are all these people going to live, and why would they move there? So I don't know if you all know that he's busing people every day as far south as San Antonio and as far north as Killeen. He's busing them every day back and forth because there's not enough people around him that would want to do that kind of work and work in a factory and build a car and learn how to manage a robot and what have you. But he's betting his entire life on moving to Texas and doing it. So what are your thoughts, having worked in the city of Houston, probably the most amazing, iconic city in the history of Texas, from putting the man in the moon to everything else that is coming and happening? How do cities afford this stuff?
Goodness. They're all asking themselves that same question, Andres. And I think that right now I think they need to change the business model. John already said that. And we were talking about this. I'll give you an example. If you're a large metropolitan area and you put in an AMI system, just smart metering, you now can put in a communication network of some kind. If you're not using cellular, if you're using a fixed network, well, now you have created, and I've heard y'all allude to it on this call, is you've created an opportunity for an economic environment. I mean, you could sell usage on that network to some of the other jurisdictions around there and create an economy of scale associated with your local jurisdictions. We were talking about that in 2010 at the city of Houston. The limitation that you find with that is political acceptance, political adoption, big brother, all the various things that we talk about. But the truth be told, if those that are looking at cities will look at them more like businesses and run them in a revenue generating cost capacity, like profit and loss centers, then you would see a lot of this adoption escalate or advance more quickly. And I think that's why you're the financial lab, the commercialization lab. I think that academically, as we're teaching, one of the things I taught, I was an adjunct for a couple of years at the University of Houston, or a couple semesters at the University of Houston, and I taught public finance, and I did it from a pragmatic perspective. How do you create business justification and how
Mhm.
do you justify cost expenditures? Well, if we're looking at that and we're generating revenue and we understand how to generate more revenue to offset the expense my citizens or the cost of services my citizens would have to pay, and then I'm able to reduce my expenses, we're just starting to get more and more effective. And then at the same time, if we make the cities safer and all, and our insurability becomes better within those cities and
Mhm.
all this, because our buildings don't flood because of their smart technologies, we've got smart buildings in place. And so you're looking at an entirely different business model, and that's where it starts. And so, John, you alluded to that, and clearly you're walking down that path. I think that's absolutely where it needs to go, is that we need to teach public officials how to, I'm saying this with the idea of our federal deficit being what, I don't know what it is now, 33 trillion or whatever the number is, that we need to run government like a business. We need to be more astute with our
Yeah,
both sides of the ledger.
And I think
absolutely.
the thing is that the technology will allow you to do that now.
Agreed.
Everything
I
from
agree.
smart business to smart infrastructure, bridges. When things would need repairing, when things are falling apart, you get a signal on it, you know how many people coming through. You drive into Chicago and all of a sudden all the restaurants pop up.
I could use that as much as I travel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I
So-
really enjoy Chicago. Yeah.
So tell us, what are you doing the next 6 months going on at Atlas? Feel free to share and plug anything you want. What's going on in the next 6 months?
Well, right now our primary is paying the bills. You're getting discrete projects, design projects. We do a lot of work with the city of Austin, the airport expansion, et cetera. We've just picked up a couple of contracts in Houston, the Houston metropolitan area. So we're trying to grow that. Our vision, which extends beyond 6 months, but I would say within the next near term, we just created a 2030 strategy. And so our ultimate vision is to merge traditional civil engineering with the digital age, and that is to inform design as well as it is to help design and create smart jurisdictions. I don't want to say smart cities, but whatever the jurisdiction is, we're able to come in and help you carve that out. We've got a very strong engineering team, and we also have very good partners, former CIOs, as well as data scientists that work with us to help us conceive this. What we're working right now on is finding a champion who would be interested in actually pursuing, a smart city model so that we could step through that, because it's going to be a multi-year process.
Yeah.
Look,
Well,
actually-
I would be delighted to explore collaborating with you guys. We, at CMG, we have several smart city projects in Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, West Virginia, Arizona, and here in Texas. And then at the university, we are, working with all kinds of cool technologies, from green concrete, green pavement, to sensors on the walls. We just opened up our new smart buildings and infrastructure lab for stress testing. We have several companies joining the consortium in Cedar to do stress testing of all kinds of, what I call modular housing construction technologies.
Wow.
Lots of cool things going on. So love to follow up with you, Tommy, and see if maybe we can visit with the team at some point.
Yes.
Andres, I'd like to do that much sooner rather than later. We've been talking about it for a couple of years. It's time. And so this outreach was timely, and I just appreciate y'all's invitation, and just good to see you again, John. And Andres,
It's always good, Tommy. Let me ask you this question. I have a good friend, Dale Tessar, who's one of the great engineers at the University of Texas. And what's happening to mechanical engineering? Is electrical engineering just completely wiping them out with the software?
I don't know. Mechanical engineers, we still have pumps. We still have
actuators. We still have actuators.
We still have actuators. We still have.
Most of the research money is going to electrical, but all software. Okay.
Yeah, I think what's happening, Johnny, is that every discipline is becoming intelligent. You may Recall
Yeah.
that, you know, we have launched a new civil engineering here at Texas State and a new mechanical engineering, and they're all learning Python programming and sensors and networks. And so we have, on the civil engineering side, you guys got to come and spend time. I have 15 superstars. We're designing a new fire station for the city of Kyle. That
Wow.
is going to be like the fire station of the future. Beat me up, Scotty. You know, kind of all that. So there's
Andres,
all
I
kinds
can't,
of cool
I can't
things.
wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. It's gonna happen sooner rather than later. So we'll reach out.
Let's do
Mhm.
it. Let's do it.
Gotta
Let's
do it.
do it. All right, I have to apologize to the audience. We lost Llewellyn, who was trying to do a new trial of the bullet train, which is an Amtrak train, not a bullet train, from Rhode Island to DC, and somehow the connection was not very good, unfortunately. But Llewellyn is always a charming man, and so my apologies to everybody for the fact that the technology didn't work. Johnny, take us away.
I just got like the country stuff. Let me see what I can think of. Amarillo by morning.
Morning. Amarillo.
Standing tall. The only thing that I've got is what I've got on. When that sun is high in that Texas sky, I'll be looking at the county fair. Amarillo by morning, Amarillo, I'll be there.
Woo!
No better
That's
way
for
to
you,
finish
Tommy.
up with some George Strait.
Tommy likes the country stuff. That's good stuff. I play it all.
Tommy,
Okay.
always a pleasure, Tommy.
Always a pleasure, Tommy.
Let's,
And I'll see you later.
I will circle back with you. The Digital 360 Summit is coming. John will be doing a keynote. We have all kinds of things happening. A couple of closing thoughts. In addition to designing that fire station, Texas State, I won a grant for TxDOT, and we are driving the flying economy in Texas. So we are on a 2-year journey of designing 10,000 vertiports locations, 10 gigawatts of power to deliver those vertiports, how the flying economy is going to happen in Texas, the FAA, all that. Lots of stuff going on. Thank you guys
Exciting.
for
Thank
joining
you.
today.
Take care, Tommy.
We'll talk to you
All right.
soon.
Take care,
All
guys.
right, bye-bye.
Bye now.